Hey, we're back now. You all, if you've stayed the course all afternoon, you know why. Many people in my life have always told me that I have a face for radio, but glad to be here with this panel. And before I turn it over to Rajie Kabli as the moderator, I'd like to just take 2 minutes, no more than 2 minutes, to explain in legal and constitutional terms what media means to us in our society. In the US, media tradition, until very recently, because it's abandoned that role, was always referred to as the fifth column to the Constitution. That is, the Oval Office, the House of Representatives, the Senate, and the US Supreme Court were not alone in upholding and ensuring the vibrance of the US Constitution. The press was considered the fifth column, because without the press and the transparency that was provided by the press, never perfect, of course, but still there, those other four institutions that upheld the Constitution could not properly function. In Canada, in the 1950s, our Supreme Court in Canada enunciated very clearly the freedom of speech and freedom of expression are at the crux, at the very basis of democracy and the rule of law and constitutionalism itself. You stifle freedom of expression and speech, everything comes tumbling down. And what is freedom of speech and expression? I just want to clarify that most people, unfortunately, think that the right of freedom of speech or expression belongs to the person who's broadcasting, speaking, or writing, the person emanating the message. That's not the case. Freedom of speech of any message symbiotically belongs to not just the speaker, but the receiver. So when there is censorship, it's not just the person who's being censored that has that right infringed. It's also the person and persons and the public at large who are deprived of that message, who are equally having their rights to being violated. So I'm very happy to have the guests we have today. Mickey Willis had committed to be on. He was scheduled to be on, but a last minute personal matter made it impossible for him to join us. And I'm very sad about that, because I was looking forward to having the panel. So I wanted to just introduce the moderator, who is Rajie Kabli, who's co-founder of Wholehearted Media here in Toronto. Full disclosure in terms of my legal obligation, I'm the co-founder of that same media company, which is having its soft launch tonight at 7 p.m. And I won't go any farther. Rajie, you just take it away.
Okay, thank you so much, Rocco. Welcome everyone to the Media Roundtable. I am so excited to be sitting here with all of you right now. And there's lots to dive into. If you have watched the whole day, you will have noticed that each table kind of touched on media. So guys, Ali, Matt, Rocco, we got a lot to unpack, because between law, medicine, education, and law and health. Medicine. I said that. It's a long day. There is lots to touch on in terms of media. Now, what I love about this crew that we have right now is that we come from different aspects of media, and yet we're all going to converge here. Matt, you represent the health and wellness, the human potential sector. Your podcast is #1 in 10 countries in the self-help category, and #1 in spiritual in 15 countries. That's just awesome. Great job. Congratulations. And Ali, you leveraging the power of media and sharing your story and empowering others is just beautiful. And I can't wait to touch on that more. And Rocco, what can I say? You're suing the CBC. So let's talk about that too, and why and what that means. So before I dive in, I also want to, because, we got to keep it fun. We got to keep it light. Sometimes this stuff gets a little heavy, right? So today we have a gong with us, okay? And I want to invite you guys also to feel free through me, tell me like, hey, Raj, it's a gong moment. You know, if you like something that someone said, or you're like, I really want to emphasize that, let's resonate that. Boom. What does this sound like? I didn't do it too hard. Can you hear that? How's it sound? Yeah. Awesome. So we got the gong here. That's great. Great little tool. I know it's for resonation. And I'd like to invite everyone, if it's okay with you, to come into a quick coherence. Is that good? Thumbs up? Yeah. Ali, good. Rocco, quick coherence. Oh,
What's that mean?
let's
What's that
find
mean?
out. So, social.
I'm over 22.
Oh,
I don't know
we're
what
going to
that
find
means.
out. Social coherence is a thing. And this is exactly what we're doing. If we're here looking for solutions, then we have to.
We're getting Raj's picture freezing a bit. I think the
High energy. How about that? Is that better? I'm back on.
Yeah, Rajie, I think the government with your feed, because we didn't have a problem on the feed until you got
They didn't like the gong. They didn't like the gong. Okay, but no, seriously, social coherence is very important, especially for what we're about to talk to. So it's not going to be long. Okay. I want you to just sit, and I invite the viewers who are watching this right now to sit in a comfortable position, whatever that looks like to you. You can close your eyes. You can leave them open. I'm going to close mine. And just take a deep breath in through your nose and out through your mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. One more like that. Good. Now, bring all your attention and awareness to the center of your chest, to your heart space. And just imagine your breath is flowing in and out of your heart. Breathing a little bit slower. A little bit more deep. Setting the intention to come into coherence with this group here and with the wider audience and with the subject matter. And when you're ready, open your eyes. Excellent.
Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, Rajie, I wish you had told me. In my generation, we called that a breath of meditative minute of silence. That's what you meant by social
coherence means we drop
it.
in. So we just did a little bit of heart focused breathing. And so what happens is, and we touched on this in the last panel, which is great. When you drop into your heart and then with the intention with other people, you sync up. And so that allows whatever conversation or dynamic to flow more harmoniously. And this is part of new media, right? So not only are we going to talk about it, but we have to implement it, right? As leaders and as the ones that are creating a new world, a new paradigm, shifting things, we have to. So that being said, I'd love to open this up. Like at first I was going to start with like, how important is the role of media in an individual's life? And okay, I invite anyone that wants to answer that, but I feel as though that the intro did a really good job of that. And if anyone wants to add anything, let's do that now, or else I think I want to move to the wider question. Because Rocco, you already touched on it a little bit more, which was censorship, and I was going to go there later, but let's see how everyone else feels. Does anyone want to answer the question of how important is the role of media in an individual's life?
I think it's extremely important. And that's why I think we're in such a pivotal moment in our planet, because what the media can do for someone, especially for those people that are unaware of it, is they really come in and they define our reality for us. And so if people are unaware of the role that media is playing with all of the programming, the predictive programming, the subconscious, the NLP going on behind the scenes, it's really sending out very powerful psychological messages to us. And so if someone is unaware of that, their reality is going to be oriented around whatever the media wants them to be oriented. That the media will define their reality for them. But likewise, what's so empowering is as people awaken and we come into our own sovereignty and we understand and acknowledge that psychological impact is there and we become aware of it, that's when we're able to, I kind of call it diving into the darkness. I'm aware that they do it. I can see it, I acknowledge it, but I'm able to take back and define my own reality, versus what they're trying to, force me into.
And Allie, how did you come to that awareness? What happened to make that switch? And you were like, wait a minute, what's going on?
It's a little bit bigger than that. I'll try to make it quick, but for me, it was more, it all kind of parallels. For me, I had to go through that positioning in terms of my health. And what had happened was I was orienting my reality around a whole pharmaceutical, white-coated doctor, reality, allopathic medicine of I am presenting with symptoms, I am mentally ill, I was told, and therefore I need a drug to cure me. And it was, over 2 decades of just a constant revolving door of drugs. And that is what my reality was oriented around. I believed that I truly was mentally ill and that I was going to be really sick and psychotic until I could find the right cocktail. That's what they always promised me. And then really, I kind of got ejected from the system because I had reached so many suicide attempts and so many different combinations of drugs. My last doctor told me he couldn't help me. And then I found Kelly Brogan, and she is the one that really shifted. What Kelly did for me more than anything as a holistic psychiatrist was she shifted my mindset. And so she broke me out of that reality, that I was captured in that fantasy version of what big pharma, media, the allopathic medical community was telling me. And it freed me to go and define my own reality. So it's been a process of breaking out of that, really coming into healing and seeing that I do feel better. I present way better than I did in that system. And that's where, my cognitive dissonance was broken by coming into my own healing.
Nice. Thank you so much. So you had the help of an individual that could, and we talked about mentorship and stuff in the last roundtable. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. And so Matt, what about you? What about, what happened to allow you to kind of like wake up to media and how important it is in your life and the role it's playing, and is it nefarious, and how did you use it to create your dreams and make your life?
Well, I think media is incredibly important, and I love what Ali said, and I love Rocco's beginning. I was actually going to touch on that. I thought it was the fourth estate. That's what Tom Campbell told me, but maybe it's the fifth estate. But either way, the journalists and the media would keep all of these different businesses and people accountable for their actions. And so my original inquiry was into war and starvation. I didn't understand why we had that on the planet. And I was also really interested in mindset, mind power, hypnosis, which that led into NLP and different things, and understanding language and how you could use it to manipulate people. And so when you go back in time and you study any wars, or you even look at the Rwanda genocide, what they did was they gave radios to one tribe and they started feeding propaganda through them. And so they used story and they used manipulation to influence them in their decision making. And so when we have a very few set of people that are controlling the narrative, that's what people are going to believe. And that's why we need two sides of the story. That's why we have to have freedom of speech, because if somebody makes a claim and says, the only way for you to get better in Ali's case is allopathic medicine, there are no other alternatives. And for what we're in right now, you can go back to the Flexner report of 1910. And that's when Rockefeller and Carnegie commissioned that report. And they said anything that was homeopathy, anything that wasn't allopathic medicine was quackery. And so they know of these tools, and they would kind of guilt and shame and ridicule anybody with an alternative view. So that makes you very hesitant to believe the whatever the mainstream narrative is. And it's a very, very powerful tool. And if you're able to do that, you're going to be able to control whatever's coming down the pipe. And the challenging thing is that some of these systems are not for our benefit. People aren't conspiring behind the scenes to make our lives better. Often it's for more control and manipulation. And that's kind of a tough pill for people to swallow. In Canada, for example, Post Media, I believe, owns about 90% of our mainstream media, if not more, all the major newspapers. And in the States, it's very little as well. So if you're a person who's doing something corrupt, you don't want that to come to light. And so you've got an immense amount of power to destroy stories or crush that narrative. And so the mainstream's never going to figure it out, because most people in their busy lives, they don't have time to do the digging or the investigative work. And that's why we had real journalists, real reporters, and real news back in the day to do that for us, so we could weigh both of the claims. There's story A, there's story B. We listen to them both, and then we make our own decision. And you could see that very clearly when Robert Kennedy Jr. Debated Alan Dershowitz, I think his name was. And it was like very one-sided, because Alan Dershowitz was kind of using a bit of propaganda and this mainstream stuff. And Robert Kennedy was able to pick apart everything that was misinformation with a much better argument. And as you watched it, it was very clear who had more truth, more understanding, and where you would probably put your vote if you had to make a decision whether you wanted to get, this new vaccine coming out or not.
Nice. Thank you. Very well said, Matt. Rocco, I'd love for you to weigh in on and touch on from the COVID measures and your statement of claim. How has that affected the media and, presenting a contrary narrative, and, being like getting in trouble for it too? Like, I want you to touch on that, because I know you have a lot to say about this.
The CBC, the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which I now am calling the Corona Broadcasting Corporation, they never story until we sued them, and even now it's light, covering the criticism by eminent experts around the world who have a different view on the measures. So there, as we say in the statement of claim, the CBC has been to the Soviet during the Cold War. Social media has been vicious, so we're all victims of it. YouTube has given me 2 strikes for having conversations with world-renowned experts, such as Dolores Cahill from Ireland, who is a world-renowned expert as a virologist and microbiologist. We had a 2.5 roundtable, Dolores and I, and that got yanked. Critical discussions with highly qualified experts and legal opinion yanked down. And in the United States, social media has the protection of Congress, because when the internet was initially launched, they wanted a free flow of ideas. They did not want censorship. So Congress said, you can't sue these guys for what they post. They're not liable. They're giving us a venue to exchange ideas and la-di-da-di-da. Now it's completely the opposite. Of course, in Canada, they don't have that protection. So we can foresee more than one lawsuit against the social media. There's one that's been certified as a class action out in British Columbia already that they tried to strike, where somebody was slandered by taken down by Twitter. In Canada, social media does not have protection. They're liable like any other media in tort. So, but I just wanted to add before I forget, it's an easy thing to forget about, one of the things is, it's the nature of human beings. Things that are supposed to, the same thing that happened with social media, things that are supposed to liberate us and be constructive for humanity, often turn into militaristic, nefarious tools. For instance, Marconi's radio. Do you know what the first use for his radio was?
Right.
Was he in 1901, he sent a message from England to Newfoundland. Within less than a year, his radio was being used by the British and the Russians and everybody else to against the Ottoman Empire. It was used for war purposes. The first use of the radio was for communication in the battlefield. So we've reached that now with social media. I got 3,000 of my followers on Twitter removed practically overnight. I don't know that 3,000 people just decided to unfollow me overnight, and I'm not the only one. You know.
No, you're not. And somebody on this panel, Matt, has a lot of experience. Matt's been banned, blocked, shadow banned, gone from Instagram, gone from Facebook. Matt, weigh in here. What happened?
Well, it's
How
funny because I think they were picking on me first. I was one of the first to get deleted. And when they deleted me from Facebook, you know, they did all my personal account too. So all the friends that I'd made from, you know, traveling to about 25 different countries, all gone, no warning, for no reason. And it's fascinating because, you know, I was aware of some of the seedy nature of the organizations and institutions on the planet from some of my research. I worked on a project to bring awareness to the forced organ harvesting that's going on in China. And we were going to call it blacklisted, because if you speak up about it, you get blacklisted. And so when we had the acts ready, we had the place ready to go, all we need to do is finalize the land. When whoever was going to rent us the land figured out what we were doing it for, must had a tie, and then we got blacklisted from doing the blacklisted event. And so, you know, I had actually spent some time in China, and I didn't realize how bad it was. They had no YouTube, no Facebook. If I asked them a political question, because I just come from Nepal, I was meditating with monks and I wanted to learn about their culture. They were terrified. You could actually see them visibly afraid. They said you could go to jail if you had YouTube or Facebook on your computer. And my brain at the time, it couldn't wrap, I didn't know all the things I know now, and I couldn't wrap my head around what was actually going on. And so, you know, I had 5 years committed to personal development, spirituality, all of these, you know, topics to help empower people, just deleted overnight. And so it's a very curious thing when that happens, because when the coronavirus started going on, I wanted to know what the truth was. That's all I wanted to know. What's the truth? And I began unpacking things, and I went all the way back to germ theory versus terrain theory, understanding modern medicine and how we could be in the situation that we're in. And the power of storytelling is so important. There's a quote that says, whenever they burn books, in the end, will also burn human beings. And that's Henrik Heine. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but you know, it's so important to control the narrative. And I spent a lot of time learning from different indigenous elders. And when we kind of conquered them or did all the terrible things that we did, we take them out of their schools. But one of the common things in their culture is storytelling. They would pass down their history orally. And what I knew from the 3 different indigenous elders I studied with, they had a 20,000 year history passed down orally, which is much longer than ours, is very different than ours. Their stories are completely different than anything that I would learn in Toronto, Canada, which you would learn in any different parts of the world. Everybody's got a different history and a different story. And you want to rely on your elders, your grandparents, your parents to tell you the truth, what they have learned about their history. And so when we're going out in this artificial world and it's being curated and specifically used to manipulate us, and that's what's happening. You know, I was talking to my dad, and he's telling me this kind of stuff, all headlines and propaganda. And I said, Dad, the function of the news now is propaganda and is to manipulate. The function of media and television and all these TV shows is to scare you and to basically manipulate you. It's not just entertainment. There's actually a purpose. And when you understand a little bit about psychological operations and a little bit about NLP and a little bit about how language works, you're going to notice the language patterns. You're going to notice what they're doing. But for the average person, you're not going to notice that. And so it's very, very important we become aware of this. And, you know, just if I say, like, don't think about a pink cat, you think about that, and they use fear as their number one tool. I remember in Ontario, the newspaper came out and it said 100 million people could die, you know, as the first headline. And so you read that and you think, oh my goodness, 100 million people could die. And what actually happens, interestingly, is called amygdala hijack. And they use this, Yuri Bezmenov talked about this, but once that kind of happens, no amount of fact or truth or information, once it's fully hijacked in there, is going to allow their brain to expand to receive new information because they're too afraid. They can't let new ideas in. And so for 3 months, it's like everybody's going to die, everybody's going to die, everybody's going to die. And then it's set in. So now whatever they want to roll forward, no matter we find out if it's 99.9%, survival rate, 98, they accidentally in CTV News, they said 98% of the deaths were in long-term care. And then some people went and said, hey, wait, what? Like, how are 98% of the deaths in long-term care? So they deleted that, and they deleted the video that people saved of CTV, so you can't find it. So, there's actually something going on here, and it's definitely not for our benefit. When you're hiding information, somebody's keeping something from you.
Yeah, hiding information. And what really gets me is the nefariousness, and it's not cool that they are using our natural mechanism to attracting that which we desire against us. And until we become aware of all of that, it's you have to break free from it. And breaking free, Ali, like you've been labeled, and you've done a great job with the breaking free from that. And I want you to touch on how you used storytelling, and piggybacking off what Matt just talked about the oral and sharing your story and what you've seen with your social media, and connecting with individuals and helping them on their path.
Yeah, Matt does such a good job explaining that. I think it's really important too. I kind of look at it from a different angle myself, in that I haven't been involved in the wellness community. And, kudos to Matt and all of these people that have been very committed to it for, many, many years. Those are the types of people that saved my life. But I've been coming in with my own personal experience, and that's been kind of horrific to me, because now I'm noticing how me and other, people like me that have been injured by pharma, or mothers and parents, fathers of, vaccinated, injured children, our own stories are now being censored. So it's like, it's not only my research, or I'm, a researcher, it's like my personal story of how I suffered immensely. My children suffered, my family suffered immensely, for over, like I said, 2 decades. And so I'm sharing my story and my truth, my reality, and what I actually experienced. And they're telling me that it didn't happen, or they're deleting my accounts. I have my Instagram account deleted, and then it came back on. Facebook, I can't access it now, only by computer. I think I lost like 4,000 people, like Rocco did, on Twitter just overnight. So that's one thing that's and that's when I started to notice the parallels between my story and psychiatric drugs and vaccinations. That's when I really started to put the pieces together last year, because I said to myself, they were gaslighting me and telling me my mental illness wasn't caused by the drugs, when it was caused by the drugs and the trauma. Just like they're telling vaccinated parents, no, your child didn't die of the vaccination, it died of SIDS. So that plausible deniability, our inability to really prove, we don't have any concrete proof of knowing that they're committing a crime against people, but our experience and our stories are being, wiped out. And so that was extremely, really scary to me that they're able to do that. I do want to make a quick point though, because I hear people talking a lot lately about, well, these are private companies, and they're able to determine who they want on their platforms. That's their right to do that. And I want to understand, for people to really get the game that they're running on you, because there is a real defining issue between the right to content, like the right for me to go out and put my opinion out there, right? And maybe it may be harmful, maybe it's not. And they may or may not have the right to censor me for that. But what they're actually limiting and censoring is the right to access information. And that's really a big difference between the right for someone to say their opinion, harmful or not, and the right for you to be able to access all information of any type, to be able to access any medical information that can help you or your family. And then they are not allowing you the right to get to it, or the right to discern what you want to do. What medical treatment, or what would you like to choose? So by limiting, and Rocco, I think, made a great point at the beginning by saying that, the real victims are also the people not being censored, but the ones that aren't able to get to the information. That's a very, very critical point, that everyone, a lot of these people think that they're winning that as individuals, because all of this information is this harmful, information is being blocked from them, but actually you're losing in the end because that sword cuts both ways. They are going to be able to knock out any right for you to have any information to anything. And that's a very perilous, path to be on.
Yeah. Rocco,
Yeah,
do you
let
want
me,
to?
Raj,
Yeah, I knew
yeah,
it.
it's okay. Thank you. Let me go back to a point I made earlier, but from a different dimension that might make it clearer, tied into storytelling, as Matt and Ali have been talking about. At the end of the day, the reason freedom of speech is and expression, both by the speaker and the recipient, is so critical to not just society, but the individual, is because if you remove freedom of speech, you remove the human validity or relevance of thought. So who cares what your thoughts are if you can't communicate them? You are dehumanized at the very crux of what it means to be human. Without thought and conveying that thought, you are speechless. You are a nonverbal, and you can't connect to other members of your society, and therefore your societal structure breaks down. And that ties into storytelling. How, in my mind, anyway, in the Western tradition, in Western literature or world, right? Like, I bet you nobody on this panel can name me the top real estate mogul during ancient Greece or the Roman Empire. But here we are 2,805 years later, still talking about Homer and his Odyssey. That's who we are intrinsically as a species. We are storytellers, because in the art of in storytelling, we manifest who we are, our thoughts, our beliefs, and communicate with other members of our society whom we would.
Say that last part again. I missed it cut out.
Well, as storytellers, that's who we are as a species, because in thinking and expressing what we believe and who we are and our experiences to other members of society, if we stop doing that, we would perish as individuals. You're no one if you're not related to another human being.
And it hurts.
You don't exist.
It hurts inside to not be able to express yourself. And if you don't, if you self-censoring is a thing. Like, we're shooting a story with doctors this Saturday, and a big topic is self-censoring. And it's almost like there's a spectrum now. There's, are you being censored by social media platforms? And then are you doing it to yourself? I know for myself, it's totally happened in the last, since the last 10 months for sure, where I'm like, I really want to say this thing, or like I'm feeling something, but I'm not going to say it out loud because I might get ostracized. I might get laughed at. I might get criticized. I might. It's so scary. So I really want to know from you guys, like, what is your experience with self-censoring? And have you experienced it at all?
Well, I think that's a really good point, because when I talked about the Flexner report, there's a reason why there's ridicule, shame, and guilt, is because they're incredibly strong emotions. And as I started researching this, I've had friends my whole life. I've grown up with them. They've watched my life experience and journey, and they know I research everything. And as I started to share some of that research, I was losing friends very quickly, and they would come back. And what I noticed was all it was logical fallacies. I never once had a two-way dialogue. It was just complete cognitive dissonance, and then attacks. And still to this day, since March, it's been that way. And I've noticed how the propaganda has changed and how people are really buying into it. And the next phase was kicking people out of your life. And so, if you're one of these people who believe this crazy thing, we kick you out of your life, just like back in, the Flexner report. If you wanted to use homeopathy, or you wanted to do terrain medicine, clean food, clean water, you're healthy, the body can take care of itself, and use some common sense. as well as herbs and other remedies, well, then that was quackery. And so it took an amount of courage to make that decision. I'm sure it would have took Ali a lot of courage to, make a different choice, right? Or whether it's vaccine injury or whatever the case is. But, to go back to the point that Rocco was making, like if you experience something in your life and it's true and you can't share it because they're going to ridicule you for a true thing that you've experienced, that's an actual fact, these people won't even listen. And that's why this is such a dangerous time, because they don't want to receive new information. Then they're going to be aggressive about it on top of the ridicule. So it's a very challenging space to be in, to even, consider sharing the truth. And I've been attacked over and over. I've lost a good percentage of my friends, and it came in stages, you know what I mean? As the fear ramped up, other ones would explode, and then we would be on the same page. The fear would ramp up and other ones would explode. And that one of the points I wanted to make was these people that are doing this, they're masters of manipulation. If you look at Edward Bernays and you watch the documentary Century of Self, or you read Joseph Goebbels' book, who did propaganda for World War II, you can see how they've been studying propaganda and manipulation for years, and they're masters of it. And they also take into account group psychology. And there's something very frightening going on right now with the masks. Darren Brown, who's a great magician, and he does all these different experiments, and he does an experiment where he gets the entire audience to put on masks. And then he gives them these random scenarios. And what he notices is over time, as people think that they're behind the mask, they become more and more violent. They become into a mob mentality. And we're starting to see that in our culture. We're dehumanizing ourselves. We're behind this thing and we're becoming less empathetic. And that's what makes us human. We're not always right. We don't always have the right information, but we might have a different point of view. Maybe you tried one thing and it worked for you, and somebody tried the opposite thing and it worked for them, but it can be equally true from their perspective. And they need to be able to share that so that other people can make an informed decision from different points of view.
Beautiful. I love it. Does anybody want to piggyback off that?
I want to point out real quickly that in my experience, part of my trauma and abuse that I had come into taking the drugs from was psychological abuse. So that's what, I've been pointing out on my accounts, on my platforms, is the parallels between experiencing individual psychological abuse and then, on the microcosm versus the macrocosm, which is what we're seeing on a very large scale. And what they're doing, Matt's exactly right. They're using fear. And in my opinion, they're using fear of death, fear of exile, fear of being kicked out or abandoned, not accepted, fear of scarcity, not having enough, getting sick, and then fear of the unknown. No one knows what's going to happen. And those are the fears that they're really plugging into. Right. And in order for people to overcome that, it does take somewhat of stepping off into understanding and, first of all, acknowledging what they're doing. You have to acknowledge, you have to know your enemy to know how to work against them. We have to acknowledge that there's something going on that's really, really evil. And that's how we, come up against it. But I think it's really important for us to stay in coherence. I think that's a huge point that you made earlier. And as I share my story on social media of my healing, that tags somebody else that maybe had a similar story, and then that validates their reality. They're like, oh my gosh, I wasn't crazy. Or maybe somebody that has a vaccine injured child that speaks their story and their truth, and then that prompts somebody else to be like, you know what, you're right. And so this is where it all gets woven together. The strength in numbers that Ben was talking about earlier is powerful, and that is why the power of media is so important right now. But I think it takes that coherence that you're talking about, Rajie, I think is huge, because what happens as more and more of us are awakening to what's going on, we learn how to take their manipulations and we learn how to manipulate that energy in a powerful, positive way. We learn how to do it for good. And so that's what I think is we're seeing that happening now. We see that with these really powerful stories, this coherence coming together, and all people collectively, rising and sharing and validating and supporting one another. I think it's critical, and it's amazing to watch.
For me, that's a gong moment. Just got to do it. It's like, yes, yes, because guess what? You inspire another person to act. And when the mere idea of you sharing your story or experience authentically, truthfully, it resonates with the other person, and then they're like, and it doesn't feel so scary anymore. Now, guys, what about the fact that somebody sent me this today, the fact that Apple told Telegram that it's coming down, and there's and Telegram posted for their followers, if you do this, this, and this on your phone, they called it joint consent or something to that effect. Rocco, have you heard of this before, with an app or a technology where if you don't say anything, you automatically go into a yes default?
It's what they call negative marketing, yeah. And when they first brought out contact tracing, everybody who had a cell phone who was dumb enough to say yes to the new updates automatically got social contact and got the 5G update. Whether it's legal, but they do it. You can't enter into a contract by default.
Gotcha.
You have to knowingly enter into the contract.
Okay.
I mean, I can't even read the fine print on my laptop with a pair of glasses, let alone on a cell phone. I've never had internet or data on my cell phone ever, foreseeing this day when I used to have vicious arguments with friends of mine in IT when I told them that eventually the internet, like every other invention, will be a military tool of enslavement, and I have been laughed at since 2002.
Well, Rocco, we have this conversation a lot, and one of Rocco's solution is get rid of your cell phone. And I'm like, come on, what are you talking about? Yeah. You really expect everyone to get rid of your cell phone? And he's like, yeah.
Yeah, no, listen, if not using your cell phone for a year in order to regain your freedom is too much of a cost, then you're building your own jail cell. So I really do believe that if you really want to be, just dump it or turn it off. Use your laptop if you have to surf the internet. When you have your cell phone on, it's a tracking device. Not just for you, but person sitting next to you, standing next to you. So, these so-called COVID case counts in Ontario, if you stand next to a person for 10 or 15 minutes and that other person has been tested positive, you're deemed positive just through the cell phone contact tracing. And do you really want the government to know everywhere you go and what you're buying on your phone? I mean, it's just
of course the argument is I have nothing to hide. Rocco, of course the other side is, well, I have nothing to hide, but we know that's okay, but we're almost out of time.
Yeah, it's like 37% of my clients said I didn't do it, and they're right, but there they are.
There they are.
Right?
So I would love to close with a question for you guys. And what do you see for the future of media? And I'll start with, for me, I see that we're not going to look at celebrities in the same way and put people on pedestals anymore. I think that everyone's kind of going to have their own platform in a way, and between maybe 10 to 20,000 plus followers, and everyone is going to feel more empowered to start sharing more and more and more as we inspire each other and as we create new leaders and stuff. So, and a lot more joy infused media. It's very contagious. So that's kind of what I see. What do you guys see for the future of media?
I see a real cohesiveness where people are stepping out of this paradigm of the top down, celebrity, and even in the healthcare system, it was a very empowering moment for me because last year, Kelly Brogan and CRC asked me to co-author a paper with them. And so I co-authored, a paper with them, and I'm like, here I was, 5 years ago, a patient, labeled mentally ill, deranged, and now I'm able to co-author a paper with someone that's very respected in the health community. And it was really a very empowering moment for me. But that's what I like with all of the followers that I have. I don't want to be on anyone's pedestal. I want to be on a peer. and I want my doctor, I want us to work as a partnership to figure out any type of health issues I may have. And likewise, when I'm on social media, I no longer see that celebrity person. If they do have a ton of followers, like a Kardashian or someone like that, I just see everyone else as kind of, being very unconscious to what's going on with them and not really awakened to their own power. And really we're all celebrities. If you think about it, we all ourselves as, such important human beings that we have so much to offer this world. And that's how I hope that my account can empower others to, speak their truth and come up with their own platforms or share, create. We're here to co-create with each other. And that's what I think we will start seeing, the power of the media as we start to use it for good. That's the way I think we'll see it go.
Thank you so much, Matt.
Well, I hope Allie's right. I'm definitely concerned with the way things are going. And one of the questions I like asking my podcast guests is, if you could change anything in the world, well, what would you do to make it more peaceful and beautiful and harmonious? And when I ask that question, the way that I would answer is news and media, because I understand how powerful it is. It plants stories, it changes perspective, it shapes young minds. It is such a powerful tool. And when you look at it and you understand it and you study it, you know that it is being used negatively to negatively impact young minds, negatively impact people, to control them, to manipulate them, for the most part, on the largest scale. So now all these independent places like Ali was talking about, CRC with Green Med Info, deleted, all these people with years and years of track records of helping people sharing, they get deleted and silenced. And we need to, if we're going to go against the mainstream, we need to have confidence in our knowledge to make that decision. So we need to find the information, but if it's not there, we're going to kind of be lost at sea, even though we know that something is wrong. We're not going to be able to find that foundation. So what I hope to see is alternatives for people opting out of systems like Facebook and Twitter that they know are being used against them into other systems. And then all we need to do is participate in new and better systems. And when I was studying with the Native American elders, that's what they would tell me often. He say, it's just participation. You stop participating in old systems that are harming people and you participate in regenerative systems. And if you do that with community, you can change the world, and at least your world, and other people will see that result and hopefully follow as well.
Beautiful. That's exactly what we're doing here now. And so that's awesome. And now, Rocco, last words.
Well, on that point, Rajie, I see the future of media polar. It's a bipolar existence, as previewed by the World Economic Forum in their theoretical future projection in 2025, and that is those who hold the emotional and intellectual IQ of a fence post and whose biggest preoccupation will be how quickly Amazon order get to my house will be still on this type of social media. Those who are thinkers and who care about their society and who are socially involved will probably shift over to what is the emerging silo type of media, where everybody has their own independent platform and we share as between each other with something like blockchain or some other technology where there is no central command and owner that can just unplug you. You own and operate your own platform. So I think both will coexist in the future.
Great. Wow. Guys, thank you so much. I feel like that went by so fast. I hope we can do this again. There's lots more to talk about. And I just want to say thank you so much and everyone that's watching, and for you guys being on this table today.
Nice meeting you both.